Good morning, everybody, and a happy Saturday morning all the way from Naples, Italy. Oh my God, we have a lot to cover. Yes, Harry lost his court case, and what's the first thing he did? He gave a BBC interview because this man is a doofus who never learns. There's so much to cover, though, so let's just jump in and get busy, shall we? Let's go. Let's start off with Princess Anne. Now, she called for a coherent national program to help build affordable rural housing in the UK. She gave this speech to address the issue. She spoke at a conference on Wednesday in London for a non-profit organization, English Rural, titled Affordable Rural Housing, Opportunity in Changing Times. She stressed the importance of affordable housing. She said, we're not talking about houses, we're talking about people and communities. Spot on. Let's move on. Let's talk about King Charles. He first received the ambassador of Japan, Hiroshi Suzuki, the ambassador of Somalia, Mr. Hash, the ambassador of Nepal, and the High Commissioner for Bangladesh. These were all private audiences that took place at Buckingham Palace. Next up, King Charles, Queen Camilla, and the Prince of Wales hosted a special reception at Windsor Castle for holders of the Victoria Cross and the George Cross. Remember, the Victoria Cross is awarded to those serving in British and Commonwealth forces and who's shown tremendous bravery. The George Cross can be awarded to anyone and is given to people who show heroism or courage in extreme danger, and King Charles has been patron of both of those associations since 2022. Looks like it was a great event. It took place a few days ago. Again, I'm catching up. Looking good, William. All right, let's keep moving on. Next up, the King and Queen were accompanied by the King and Queen of Sweden, and they planted a Swedish oak tree in Home Park, Windsor. The tree was gifted by the King of Sweden in celebration of the King's and the Queen's coronation in 2023. I just love how the two men dig the hole, do all the hard work. The women kind of stand there, and then they just water the plant. While the men are like, look at us, we did it. Good for them. All right, let's move on. I don't know if you guys know this, but it has been 10 years since Princess Charlotte was born. I cannot believe that 10 years has gone by. I just can't. She is so adorable. Every picture that's been taken has been taken by her mother, and they're all fabulous photos. She's turning into an absolutely gorgeous young lady. She's the spitting image of William. I love this last photo. This is the official photo that was released. But not only is she looking like William, she's looking like Diana. Ooh, happy birthday. Let's move on. Let's move on now to the Duke of Edinburgh. He's in the United States. I had no idea. He presided over the rededication of the bicentennial Bell Garden in Philadelphia. He gave a speech where he spoke from his heart. He fondly recalled his mother, Queen Elizabeth, who in honor of America's 200th birthday presented the city of Philadelphia with the bicentennial bell, which symbolizes the enduring friendship between the U.S. and the UK. Now, after Edward's speech, he did place a bouquet of flowers at the base of the bell, and he thanked city officials for taking care of it and said where it has been placed is simply brilliant. Keep in mind, you may not know that this bell was in storage for a decade until it got its new home in the Benjamin Rush Garden. It's also inscribed from the people of Britain on the 4th of July, 1976, let freedom ring. When those festivities were over, Prince Edward was seen arriving at a building called Carpenter's Hall, where they had some sort of a reception. And he was seen arriving that night at a dinner in support of the Independence Historical Trust and the Duke of Edinburgh Awards. A big thank you to Remoulade Sauce for showing us what Edward was wearing. Let's continue on. Really quickly, I just want to touch on this. I told you this was going to happen. Virginia Giuffre's father has come out and claimed that she did not unalive herself, that something else happened to her, which I find difficult to believe because it turns out she left a note. I think they're authenticating it to make sure it's in her handwriting. Beyond that, you guys, I just don't know what the heck happened to this woman. The whole thing is just very sad. All right, let's move on. Let's turn our attention to Meghan Markle. What's being said now is she has been using that HRH title for years, privately, behind the scenes, so nobody would know about it, to make herself relevant. She knew that she made a deal as part of the Sandringham agreement. They were not to use the HRH. But, remember, this is what she wants. This is, I'm a princess. And in the meantime, she puts out these ridiculous Instagram videos showing her collecting flowers, and she's giggling, and oh, my life is just so wonderful. And I'm thinking, it ain't all that in a bag of chips, honey, because you're in for quite the shock. It's coming. I have to tell you, your currency is really dropping when people like Whoopi Goldberg, who's on The View, won't even talk about you. They apparently had a segment about As Ever on April 30th, and Whoopi Goldberg was like, absolutely not. And the controversy was around the whole use of her HRH title. So Whoopi Goldberg yells out, damn them, and then said, you know what, just wake me up when this is over. Wake me up when you're done with this discussion. That's pretty bad. The only person who ever goes for her and talks nicely about her is that Sunny, woman who's so pro Meghan Markle, it's a joke. Meghan is absolutely using those titles for personal gain. I don't think anybody has any question about that particular, thing. Now, something else has come out. Do you guys remember the chef that criticized her? He said that Netflix reached out to him and he said, absolutely not, I'm not going on the show. He said that Meghan Markle should steer clear of the kitchen and go back to acting, saying she is quite a good actress. People should stick to what they do best. Well, in the meantime, Netflix apparently sent him a legal letter after he spoke out, giving him a warning. Oh, yeah, no, you can't stop free speech. That's his opinion, and he's entitled to it, Netflix. He said Meghan can't cook. She shouldn't be teaching anybody else how to cook, and the legal letter is a bunch of hoo-ha. I agree with him. You keep talking, dude. Well, if Netflix thinks she's so fabulous, why don't they serve some of her food at their MGM Grand Hotel restaurant in Las Vegas? Because they don't. They don't have any of her As Ever products on its menu. They don't use any of her recipes. Absolutely nothing. Why not, if she's such a great cook and does such a great job? All right, let's move on to our big story. All right, let's get into our big story for today. Prince Harry, after fighting for 3.5 years to get his security reinstated, and he did an appeal and he lost, and this appeal was against Ravik, saying that they didn't follow proper procedure, and he has lost. Now, he could continue an appeal to the Supreme Court, and if he loses in the Supreme Court, apparently he could take it even higher. Is he going to go that route? Well, Harry doesn't like to lose. Remember, he's the Dragon Slayer, which, by the way, we now know that term came from Meghan Markle from her previous interview with this Jamie Lee Kern woman, where she said that Harry was the Dragon Slayer who runs up and saves the princess. Yeah. Anyway, so that's where that came from. What Harry was told, essentially, that his grievance over downgrading security had not, quote, translated into a legal argument to successfully challenge the decision. Harry was told he was going to lose his security if he stepped down as a working royal. He agreed to the loss of the security, but I think he thought his grandmother was joking. And then when the security got pulled, he was like, wait a minute, that's not fair. That literally is what he did. Now, he is on the hook for a £1.5 million legal bill. And then Doofus Dum Dum decided to give an interview to the BBC. Let's discuss. I have some specific sections. We're going to break them down as we go, okay? Here we go.
I can't see a world in which I would be bringing my wife and children back to the UK at this point. And the things that they're going to miss is, well, everything. I love my country. I always have done, despite what some people in that country have done. So I miss the UK. I miss parts of the UK, of course I do, and I think that it's really quite sad that I won't be able to show my children my homeland.
Please remember that Harry still gets security. All he has to do is give a 30-day notice before he gets there, and he would have full police security as long as it has something to do with the royal family. If he's going over there to do something with Wellchild or, one of his patronages, no, he has to pay for his own security. That's how it works. His wife doesn't want to return to the UK, and if he brought the children, they would stay at a royal residence. They would be fully protected. As for his comments about what some people in that country have done, I can only assume that he's still banging on claiming that the UK is racist. All right, here's his next statement.
There is a lot of control and ability in my father's hands. Ultimately, this whole thing could be resolved through him, not necessarily by intervening, but by stepping aside, allowing the experts to do what is necessary and to carry out an RMB. That said, This all was initiated under a previous government. There is now a new government. I have had it described to me, once people knew about the facts, that this is an good old-fashioned establishment stitch-up, and that's what it feels like.
So Harry just threw his father under the bus, claiming that he could have taken care, essentially, of the whole thing, and that this is some sort of a government conspiracy cover-up. And then he throws out some information. Remember, he said there was information that if people knew about it, they'd be shocked? Well, the information was this.
Again, I have to be careful what I say, but I think it would be quite shocking for the British public and the public at large to understand or know that, in fact, many people do know this, that people who leave public office receive lifetime protection, regardless of whether there are threats or risks to them.
So once again, Harry literally threw the royal family and the king's government under the bus. All right, then he continued on.
There have been so many disagreements, differences between me and some of my family. This current situation that has been ongoing for 5 years with regard to human life and safety is the sticking point. It is the only thing that's left. Of course, some members of my family will never forgive me for writing a book. Of course, they will never forgive me for lots of things. But, there is... I would love reconciliation with my family. There's no point in continuing to fight anymore. As I said, life is precious. I don't know how much longer my father has. He won't speak to me because of this security stuff. But it would be nice to reconcile. So it would be nice to have that reconciliation part now.
Now, I want you to know that the other thing that he said, which shows me that Harry has learned nothing, is this, and I'm quoting, "There are things that have happened that I can now forgive. I can move past that. I can forgive my family's involvement, my father, my brother, my stepmother. I can even forgive the press to a large extent as well for so many things that have happened. But what I'm struggling to forgive, and probably will always struggle with, is that a decision was made in 2020 that affects my every single day life, and that is knowingly putting me and my family in harm's way. Everybody knew they were putting us at risk in 2020, and they hoped me knowing that risk would force us to come back. But when you realize that didn't work, don't you want to keep us safe? Whether you're the government, whether you're the royal household, whether you're my dad, my family, despite all of our differences, do you not want to ensure our safety?" And then once again he said, "I'm calling for the Home Secretary and the government to do a review of Ravik." By the way, he also said, "I always thought with all the disagreements, the one thing I could rely on is my family keeping me safe, because not only did they decide to remove my security in the UK, but they also signaled to every single government around the world to not protect us." So this is a man who's whining about wanting reconciliation and then throwing his family under the bus in the same breath. This guy, the royal family, needs to not reconcile. They need to keep their distance and let the chips fall where they may. That's my personal opinion. I also want to say I think it's horrible that Harry attacked his family for the last 5 years, but yet expects them to help him out. He's just insane. All right, you guys, you know what to do. Hit the like and the subscribe bell. for all notifications, and then down in the description box you'll find the links to my Twitter, Gettr, Rumble, email, Amazon wish list, a link to my father's book which is up for sale, and a link to my second channel, along with a link to my coffee fund. For those of you who donated, thank you so much, and as always, you guys, have a great day.